Hello everyone, welcome to Vintage Kings Los Angeles. We're all here today for the launch of the Neve Genesys Black console. We have in product specialist James Townsend to talk about it. We'll give him a warm welcome.
Hi everyone, thanks very much for coming out. There's a lot to talk about and there's sort of limited time, and we've got an audience on the internet as well, so we're going to try and make it good for everybody and go through things fairly quickly now, and then will be plenty of time to look at it in detail individually and whatever, so we'll definitely come to that. Also, I'm very aware that Chevy is going to be making all kinds of obscene gestures to me to keep things moving and keep things rolling, so I'm going to try and go quickly and not get too bogged down in detail, but give you an overview about this new console and what's different about it, what's special about it. So starting with a bit of history, I mean, most of you guys here are going to know the Neve story and the where it all comes from, but this console is has a Neve DNA. I don't know if you're familiar with the 88R console, the big analog console. Same designer designed this console on the audio side, so the one thing we can never do is compromise on the audio quality, otherwise any other control, any extra features there are all worthless if the console doesn't sound good. So that had to be a part of the brief, and with over 40 years experience in making consoles, there's a lot of experience there. There's guys who've been there, starting in the early 70s, so there's a lot of experience to pull upon when doing this. However, you can't have your head in the sand about these things. There's a lot of people work in different ways now to back then, so you have to adapt, you have to change to go with it. So the concept basically is that there seems to be a requirement. People work in a hybrid manner, so people do a lot of work in the box. They use lots of different outboard. They use analog summing to get a sound, and we were looking for a way to tie this all together to make a console that's suitable for producers and studios, also studios B rooms. They might have a large traditional aircraft carrier size console, but want to do a lot of work in the B room, be able to adapt between different sessions. Modern engineers need to be able to choose between jobs very quickly, change over in minutes, not hours, to different projects. So let's go give you some details about the console, because I could talk about conceptual stuff all night, and we want some raw details. So we'll just do a very quick sweep through it. What's it got? There's a lot of different sections in this, so it covers a lot of what would traditionally be a lot of outboard hooked up and patched together. We've got on this example, we'll talk with numbers. We'll do using this example here, because obviously it gets confusing if you start talking about lots of inputs and outputs and possibilities. So what we see in front of us here, we'll keep to it that way. We've got 8 Neve mic preamps, so transformer-based mic preamps. Again, you've got 8 great preamps in one console, so not that you can't use different preamps to shape your sound and for different flavors and everything, of course, but you wouldn't want to have a console with sort of average preamps. People seem to default to using racks and racks of outboard preamps. Why not put 8 great Neve preamps in there so you can use that to make your recordings? We've got EQ and dynamics. Again, you've got 2 options on the EQ. It's the big point to stress is that it's an analog console. There's a lot of digital control of things, but the signal path is all analog. The processing is all analog, absolutely. You've got 2 options for the EQ, and this is physical EQ cards that fit inside the console. It's the classic designs, but made into a card that can be controlled digitally and upgraded. So option 1 is the 88R style EQ, which is the great big analog monster, 4-band EQ, very versatile. You can use it for everything. The other option is to use the 1084 inductor based EQ, which is a 3-band EQ. Talking about sounds difficult, but everybody calls that a musical EQ. It's a 3-band, it sweetens anything up. So again, you can better than us which kind of work you're going to do. You can select that, whether you want to go for that sort of boutique EQ style, or whether you need this console to be a workhorse multi-purpose thing, in which case you can go with a more modern sounding 88R EQ. And you can change. You could change these things around later on. You could swap the cards, whatever. Same with the dynamics. There's it's based on the 88R section, dynamics section. Again, really useful, versatile compressor and gate in there. But the big difference is it's inside the console. It's controlled digitally. Those settings are stored, so that saves you a lot of time in recall. Everybody has this way of working inside the box with being used to instant recall of everything. But then when you hit the outboard time, you're taking pictures and making notes, and it's you can waste a lot of time for that, and you don't get paid for doing recalls. Nobody pays you for that. That's on your time. So we've got recallable EQ, we've got recallable dynamics. It's an inline console, so we've got a channel section and a monitor section. So each channel can have 2 tape returns coming to it. So on this is an 8-channel section here. We can mix 16 signals here with their individual faders. We've got a lot of the traditional console features that you expect. So we've got 4 aux and 4 mono auxes, 2 stereo auxes. So setting up headphone mixers using lots of traditional outboard reverbs and stuff. You can do it all here. So 8 buses, or groups, whatever you want to call them, and a stereo master fader here. So there's very, very much of a traditional console thing happening here. Really good, well spec'd out monitor section with lots of options for monitoring different things, great metering. So that's all there. But then that's all very well. How do you then mix that into the DAW environment? So for a start, putting a big DAW screen in the middle of it is quite a statement. That tells you the intent behind this, and allowing lots of control. So what it isn't is a control surface. It's not just a control surface. That it's all based around the analog console and keeping the sound, the signal summed in the analog domain. However, it does give you DAW faders and a touchscreen, so that you can get that sort of hands-on control on the DAW side that's lacking when you use a traditional console, and the two work together very well. We'll show you lots more examples later on, but again, we're just trying to keep things moving, just to get you so you start getting an idea of what's behind the console. What else have we got? So the big deal is recalls, as we've said. So when we switch sessions with this, obviously you've got the DAW clicks into life, and you load up your new session and everything snaps into place on there, faders go. But then also on the Genesys, your stores are here. You can set up templates to, if you're tracking, if you're doing a mix, if you're using it as a sort of outboard box, you can have all these templates ready to go. So, and you can choose a default one for you when you start up. So a lot of artists are interested in this, so that you can just turn the thing on and work and add, edit and overdub things without touching anything. Just push the faders up and work with it. Other people want to do heavy editing sessions. So when you recall something, you get all the switches and everything all snap into place immediately, and you can still do a traditional recall on all the pots. Auxes and things like that, which you might not always want to do a full recall. You still got that option of going through the console and bringing it back exactly, but you don't have to. You might do a big tracking session with complicated headphone mixers and then move on to the mixing stage, so you don't need to bring that back. You can just bring a snapshot back like that and move on. So some examples will make it more obvious as we go through it. One thing you might be noticing as you look at this, because obviously it's quite a compact surface, is the access to the EQ and dynamics. And again, the big deal here is to have it from a central section, and there's a couple of good reasons for that. One is nobody likes wheeling up and down a large console. You're out of the sweet spot for monitoring. You waste a lot of time doing that, and sound changes, and it slows you down. The second thing, obviously, is the whole recall thing, which I keep going on and on about. But this is the big deal with this console. There's some great consoles out there, but without that, you're just watching your time evaporate, trying to convince people to work in that workflow. And how many people have done these things with the best of intentions, and you still resort back to mixing in the box just for time reasons, and you're compromising slightly, but your convenience wins out over quality. So that's why I'm making a big deal of this, so that we can see that we don't have to compromise there. So EQs, there's a center section here, and we can adjust it from the center section. You can there's shortcuts on each channel to get there really quickly, so you can pick an EQ or compression or whatever signal routing from channel by channel, so you don't have to do a lot of mousing and clicking and soft menus and all that sort of stuff. It's immediate, but it works really well, and it means again, you could do some things that you can't do on a traditional analog console, like copy and paste, which again, when you think about it, being able to copy and paste EQs on an analog console is quite a big deal. Or linking controls together, the width of the console, you can have them all linked together for some bizarre reason, but everybody wants, it's important to have these, because people constantly surprise us by working in ways that you'd never envisaged, and so the more control you get over this thing, the better. So that's the compelling argument for doing it this way. And as soon as people sit down and use a thing, it's a really quick way of working, and there's a lot of real benefits to that. The other thing, again, some people are using these things for, or the original Genesys, and getting excited about with this, is that you don't have to use it as an analog console. You can use it as a collection of these components. I'll give you an example. It almost is like a big sort of like a big outboard machine kind of thing. So you can have the faders, you're not bother mixing with the console faders. You can stick with using DAW faders, so you're always updating your session automation wise, and everything is there. It's always staying in there, but you're routing into the console, so you're constantly summing and getting the benefit of that summing. You can patch in EQs, you can patch in dynamics. There's 2 inserts per channel, so you can you keep your big collection of boutique outboard and have that there almost patched permanently, and use it as a great big insert box for that. So it can save you a lot of time patching other things as well. It can be, it has to be the central point of your studio. This is the big deal with this thing. So it can save you a lot of plugging and unplugging. There's lots of cool little features that, again, if it's worth getting up front and coming up and having a look at this afterwards and really seeing. So I don't want to bore everyone to tears with little things, but things like on the effects returns, we've got a stereo width control, which those of you who've used the 8816 summing box will know, which is a really great effect on the final mix. But being able to patch things through and work on stereo channels and have these effects on reverb returns or on drum overheads or whatever, it's it's not going to make you choose a console, but it's just an example of extra features that are having the luxury of a console means that you get these, you're able to include these useful things to help you work. What else have we got? Things like the main mix insert. There's also a parallel insert for that. So if you want parallel compression on your main mix, you can blend that in. Again, lots of little things that add to the usefulness and give you a good reason to base your studio around a console again, rather than a collection of different equipment. The monitoring section, you've got 4 sets of speakers. You've got lots of control over what you're listening to, internal and external signals. You can also, there's another good example, solo in front. I don't know if you're familiar with solo in front, where you can solo individual signals and then blend in the main mix against that, so that if you're working, the obvious example is drums, and you're creating a drum sound and soloing individual things to sharpen up the drums, you can hear that in context with your mix. And simple things like that, a big time saver. When you've got to work fast, personalizing the console to how you want to work and keeping all these settings is a real big deal. So the other thing is that expandability. It's a big purchase, there's no doubt about that. You want to be able to grow the console as your studio grows, so it is possible to add more channels to it, more processing. Another example of this is there's a digital board, a AD/DA converter board, so you can keep even your conversion inside the console, so you're not paying out for separate boxes, power supplies, metalwork, etc. And well respected, people like the Neve conversion, you can add it to there, so you can get it to a really simple setup that connects to your DAW with one MADI cable or firewire cable, however you want to work. So it's quite an interesting concept to do it all in one unit, and it's been developed over a long period of time, just observing how people are working now. So we should probably give you some examples of it operationally, which I don't know, hopefully you can see from there, but again, don't be afraid at the end to come investigate. So we're looking at the 88R EQ here because it's 4-band. I could pick up a compressor or a gate and modify those, go through channel by channel from here or wheel along. As I've got DAW faders here. I don't know, you probably can't see the screen too well, maybe you can see it there. So these faders are DAW faders, two-way communication with the console. I'm just trying to prove that, but there we go. Having a touch screen opens some real doors for control. Anyone who's tried to do plug-in editing on a Huey-based controller knows it's a pretty miserable experience. Because you just wish you had that extra level of control. So, for instance, selecting areas of audio, I can't think of a quicker way to do it than being able to touch it. There's some applications where that's the fastest way to do it. Other times, there's nothing like using traditional faders to get a feel of your music. When you're in that final mix stage, the touch thing doesn't come into it. There's a certain relationship with the faders. But when you're looking at plugins, for instance, it's unavoidable. A modern DAW session is going to be plug-in city. There's no doubt. But it's quite a nice way to control it. To get this control over any parameter, to just select it. I don't know if you guys can see this, but again, come over afterwards and check it out. To just pick a control up and cut and boost is quite a natural way of working. And to, some gestures in there so you can close things and fly around your session. It's subtle things, but when you need to work quickly, it's been thought about, So what else can we show you? Automation. Traditionally, we talk about differences between the original Genesys and this Genesys Black. Keeping in with the theme of a DAW-based studio, rapid changeover, we've taken the Encore automation out of this system now. So your automation is always being written by the DAW. The DAW is in control here, and we're modifying it. But again, that makes it simple for this. So there's not you don't have to keep two automation systems in sync. You don't have to keep things up to date, edit automation afterwards. That's one of the great things of working with the console is physically writing information, writing automation with your hands. But we want to keep the opportunity for being able to do that, not have it, not be able to say, this project, there's not the budget for that, we can't work that way. So there's the DAW is in charge of all this, and so you can work in that way without having to think about the console behind it. You can have build your startup template with everything routed how you want it, and not even need to think about that, and so use it as a DAW controller. But all the signal path is analog. You're taking parallel outputs out of your DAW, all bust into the console, being summed together. But you don't need to think about that. So you don't need to get bogged down in analog signal flow, because you can just mix in the way you've been doing in the box or with a controller. But then you get all the benefit of the analog console stuff. Things like zero latency headphone monitoring. Zero latency monitoring should be a necessity. It's if you're really doing the right thing by your performers that are coming in, it's unacceptable to have a delay in that sort of sense. So another reason, the simplest and fastest way to do that is with a console. You can set up your mixers, and it's just a formality. It's always like that. So you can have templates for that all set up, ready to go, without it being a big deal, without having to spend a lot of time fine-tuning your system for response. You've got a console there, make use of it. Same in the monitoring section, being able to build up. You've got two headphone mixers, Q mixers, and you can very quickly build two different mixers. So if you're tracking someone in the live room, you've got someone on the headphones in a booth, you can very quickly tailor it to that. And this is all stuff that's quite hard to do when you're in the box land, with creating lots of buses and things like that. It's very easy to get bogged down, and you want to keep a fast tracking session going. You want to be efficient and show instill some confidence in the performer. I don't know how we're doing for time now. I'm very conscious of the I can't see Chevy, so if that's a good sign. If he's not there with a shotgun pointing at me, that's a good sign we're going on. So I'm sorry we're going really quickly, but it's very important to try and cram in as much as possible so you can see what else is new. So who's it for? And the answer is for that. Anyone. I mean, the musicians, artists, producers, people who want to have the full studio experience, but without contracting a wireman to spend a week wiring a studio up, to have massive aircon systems, machine rooms, all that sort of stuff. It's fun buying a vintage console, but that comes at a price. With ongoing maintenance. This thing is pretty much self-install. You put power into it, D-connectors to your converters or to your off-the-shelf patch bays. It's not a big deal to set up. It's not intimidating to build a studio around one of these. What else can we tell you? Let's have a look. So again, probably talking a bit more about the DAW implementation. What can you do? Because it's very easy to talk about this sort of integration stuff, but you need to know how that's going to work. So you've got there's a lot of control. In blocks of 8 you can choose which are going to be your DAW faders and which are going to be your console faders, and you could change that. Some people are going to want to have their hands on the console faders for mixing wherever possible, because you get a certain response from pushing console faders that just it doesn't compare. You can do that, or you can have the whole thing as a DAW controller, so you can spread out a session wide on this and get control, or this hybrid mode, as I say. So you've got channel faders there which you might be stemming things to from the DAW, but then you can still keep a DAW control section open, so you can dip in there and micro mix the little elements that you need to get to, that you don't want to compromise with a summing box where you're trying to do broad sweeps, if you know what I mean, big, where you're bussing so many signals together. With this way, you can still get the detail and control over your Pro Tools session, but still work in that hybrid mode and still control your console faders. Or some people will bring out stems for processing, so you're primarily mixing in the box, and then you're bringing drum stems out and putting processing on those and then sending them back in, and other things in and out. There's so many possibilities for routing when you think of it that way. A good example of this is on the order page here. It's all about simple features that make things very easy for you. So we've got a channel section and a monitor section, and we've got 2 inserts and a dynamic in EQ. We've gone through that, but being able to change the order by dragging and dropping. So here I've got EQ, then dynamics. If I pick it up and drag, trying to do it sort of in a mirror image is a bit tricky. Let's do it looking at it there. So I'll put the dynamics first, and then I've actually changed the analog signal path. It's physically routed that a different way through the console, but we're just picking it up and dropping it down as if it was a plug-in, and it's stored, it comes back. Similarly, I've got 2 inserts on the channel, but what if I want an insert on my monitor path? I'm summing 16 things together. Perhaps I want a particular outboard device on the channel on the monitor path, so I can drag that insert down there. In theory, come on, there we go, and yeah, simple as that. And I've physically routed that insert somewhere else. And again, very simple. You can do it from the console surface as well with button pressers, but it's a nice, friendly way to see it, and people relate to it this way. You can see what's going on. So simple things like that, being able to move the signal around where you want it without having to get patch leads out, without having to start getting behind it and plugging stuff in. all adds to this this thing about it being very flexible and being the sort of hub of your studio. Signal routing, whereas previously you'd have a big stack of switches at the top of your channel and you'd be routing things that way. Here we've got a grid that probably looks fairly familiar if you're used to routing signals around in Pro Tools. You know, you click with the mouse and you can route something to a bus for processing, or you can send something straight to the main mix, or bring reverb returns in. It's straightforward. Again, you can do it from the surface, so when you're familiar with the console you can work very quickly, but it's not too off-putting for people who've grown up in sort of DAW land. You know, it's pretty accessible, but there's a lot of power behind what's a fairly simple interface. So time-wise, how are we doing that? I'm conscious I'm doing a lot more talking then. It's are we still on time? I can see a raised hand.
Yeah, how many buses?
You've got 8 buses here, yeah. So that's it. So again, you can assign internal signals to those, so you can route things to the buses, or you can use them, bring extra signals in there to mix. So I'm seeing how Chevy looks. Is he furious? Is he happy?
We're about 25 minutes, so however you keep going.
They're killing me here.
Keep going on the presentation, or you can take questions.
Great, okay.
However you feel.
Yeah, well, I feel pretty good. I'm enjoying that. It's a friendly crowd. So yeah, well, you got your hand up, so it's rude not to answer the question. Yeah.
All right, so the options for the EQ circuits is really cool. What kind of compression circuit is on board?
It comes from the descended from the 88R. So there's a few things here. It's there's 2 options of attack. It's fixed attack, but there is a fast attack option there. You can still bus in, put an external sidechain in there as you'd expect, or you can use a channel EQ to drive it, you know, to process the sidechain for, you know, de-essing or whatever crazy application you have for it.
You said it also has the expander gate as well?
That's right, exactly, yeah. So again, derived from that section. Metering. You've got, I should mention the metering. You've got the permanent DAW meters section in the middle. So if we get some audio playing, I can see exactly what's happening on my DAW. These are stereo meters, so because I've just got these routed mono at the moment, that's why they're on the top. But when you, again, to the frustration of anyone who works with a traditional old console, people insist on using a lot of stereo buses in the modern world, and so you know, that thing about hard panning your channels and whatever, this way you can see exactly what's happening stereo wise per channel, which is, you know, it's just little things, but they're important. And then you've got the meters at the extremes, the channel meters and the buses and main mix meters. So again, you can see it in one glance. You can see what's happening on your DAW. If you're tracking, you can be very sure of your levels on the channel side, and then also keeping track of your mix bus. So if you're pushing, you know, again, you've got the delight of being able to push an analog console hard and feeling the change as you start, you know, playing with the levels. You've got plenty of information here. You know, these are meters on the analog signal, so you can have confidence in what you're seeing, which again, you know, when you're used to working inside the box, it's you know, the meters can be misleading there. You know, you could choose a lot of signals to look at. You could look at your auxes, monitor your auxes, so you can flip over and hear what your artist's hearing in their mix, and then flick back to your main mix all at the same time. So it's important to have that kind of control. Things like talkback. It's not a very exciting subject, but it can be quite a hassle to do in a modern studio. You know, if you don't have a specific functionality in the devices you're working with. With this console, you've got traditional talkback with some choices about where it can go. You can have a producer's talkback, so the guy at the sofa on the back of the room can have a mic and a switch, and can be, you know, that thing where you're fighting with the engineer to try and tell them, this is the mic on. You know, they have some control over that. You can have the return talkback, so you've got a listen mic back from the live room. So if you're working with some experienced drummer who's just sitting there hitting things, you know, you can, not without a mic, you can hear what's going on, you know, without having to patch anything through into the console, having to waste one of your valuable channels on talkback duty. You know, little things like that. You can save chewing up your inputs for this thing. You know, these are utilities. You've got adjustable signal presence, so you can either, some people have that so they can see if there's any signal happening, no noise, or alert themselves to problems, or you can crank it up and set it to the overload level of your converters, or where things start to break up nicely, so you can have an indicator there to let you know when you're in this sort of sweet spot. It's this level of personalization that makes this console a bit different. And if you're buying a console like this that you're going to work with and grow with, you need to have that control over it. You're not going to buy this on a whim. So this has got to last you a long time, and so that's why there was a lot of thought went into it at the design stage.
The patchable EQs and dynamics, they go on those first 8.
Exactly. Yeah. So. That's right, yeah. But because you can move them between the large fader and the small fader, you can access them individually. So you've only got one. It's easiest to talk about them in plug-in mentality. You've only got one instance per channel strip, even though it's an analog hardware EQ sitting there. But you can move it around. So again, without having to do any patching or setting up.
Can you put them on the returns that are on the right side of the console?
No, they physically locate within there, yeah. But again, there's no reason you can't, if you're butting something together, there's no reason you can't do a round trip through there to get to it. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that we've missed there. We've done types there. So I'm really keen to get to the questions because that's the most fun. But I'm conscious that because we're presenting it. Great. Yep. So as Chevy said, this is probably a good point for the people online. I hope they've been patient and enjoyed it, and hopefully it's whetted their appetite for contacting Vintage King, getting some more information about this. We've got the fun of some rapid response Q&A now, so hopefully you'll go easy on me, and then the people online will be able to catch up. I should also say, firstly, thank you all for making the effort to come out and get some information about this thing. It's too easy to rely on what happens online, and there's no substitute for actually coming and to a place like this and seeing what's on offer and forming a decision by actually touching things, asking questions, talking to people. So that's much appreciated. Secondly, thanks to Vintage King for their hospitality and for putting this on. Again, it takes a lot of effort to make these what appears to be a simple thing like this happen, and so really appreciate that. And to ProSound Web as well for getting it out onto the cyber world. So people haven't had the luxury of being able to come here and attend and see it. So thank you all very much. And there we go. Signing out.